And on the phone, I have Andrey Buzarov. Andrey, what do you think about the case of Savchenko?
Good afternoon. Well, frankly speaking, it's very difficult to give one side analysis of such case because we don't have now any official indictment. We don't have until now. We don't have any official ultimate, decision of court. We saw only the proofs, and there are a lot of questions about all these proofs. Because I think that Savchenko knows very much about her case. She knows maybe some secret information, and she doesn't want to say much. She just, I think, she will come, and we will see the same situation, the same trial as it was in Russia, now in Ukraine. So it will be some kind of theater, some kind of performance, but now in Ukraine.
But in your opinion, what are you as an Ukrainian, what are you expecting from the West, from USA, from Europe in this case?
Well, I didn't see any serious reaction. For example, when there were some problems in manifestations, meetings with Mikhail Saakashvili, ex-Georgian president, I didn't see any kind of reaction serious reaction from embassies of Germany, of France, for example, European Union. The reaction was in diplomatic way, diplomatic reaction. So I think that the same situation will be now. Everybody will be quite accurate in their estimations, in their opinions, and we will not see some kind of serious reaction from Europe, from European Union, and from United States also.
And Peter, do you think that Savchenko is in jail now?
I believe she's in custody. Yeah. I believe so,
you think that the EU or USA will do nothing, no pressure?
To release her, you mean?
To put pressure on this case?
I would imagine they'll treat it as an entirely internal affair. I don't see why they would regard it as an issue they should be involved in. I think we shouldn't confuse Savchenko, the symbol in Russia, with Savchenko, the political figure in Ukraine, and they're very different issues. Savchenko, when she was in Russia, was a symbol of Russia's illegal war in Ukraine, and in that context was an international figure. Now she's just a slightly bizarre element of an already bizarre Ukrainian domestic political scene.
And you think that will be the point of view of the West?
I would be quite confident, yeah.
And for you, Andrey, what can you add to the analysis of Peter?
I agree. I agree with my colleague. I think that it won't be some kind of serious reaction, and I'm sure that the United States will not give any kind of official reaction. But all the world, Europe, United States, and Russia, they see what is happening in Ukraine, and they see what is happening now with the Savchenko's case. And the biggest problem for this case is that this case is unpredictable. We can't even now foresee the result of such case and what will be the result of this case, and generally will be the result of this case. But it takes a long time when we hear the final decision of the court.
Then, for you, Peter, and for you, Andrey, then we will not have big reaction from the West, and this is only like a consequences of the political situation in Ukraine.
I mean, it's another symbol of a political instability. So of course it's a negative for Ukraine in terms of its international image. But again, I don't think we should read too much into this. Except from it makes Ukraine look like an outlier, democratically speaking. It's a pretty crazy scenario for a member of parliament to be involved in something like this. But I don't think it's a major international diplomatic incident. No.
Another topics. MH17. Everybody know that. The process is going on. In Netherlands, they they will this terrorist act will go to the court. Andrey,
Yes.
what are you waiting for from Netherlands in the case of MH17?
I think that initially they were made serious mistakes about all this case, and there are a lot of information which were concealed from us, from experts, from public persons, I mean, from public opinion. We don't know the all kind of information about this case, and it is very difficult to estimate what is happening. I think that everybody knows who made this terrible thing, who is responsible for such thing, but nobody wants to prove it in the court. So I think that we will not hear the final decision about this case in the proximate years.
Yes, this case is only in the National Court of Netherlands now. For you, Peter, what are you waiting for from this case in the National Court of Netherlands, I repeat? Well,
this is the agreement, the international agreement to allow the Dutch to try the case, to hear the case. I think we're going to move closer and closer to a more definitive verdict that Russia was responsible, that it was the Russian military that was responsible, that the Russian High Command ultimately takes final responsibility for that. That will raise there will be certain international implications of that. Of course, I don't think we're going to see a situation where we have a trial with defendants on trial, even via video link. Of course, Russia will maintain its absolute stonewalling position. It will not recognize the court's jurisdiction. It will not recognize the findings. So it will be one more major obstacle to a thaw between Russia and the West.
Then the process
but it'll be a long
on.
time. It's not going to move quickly. I think Andrey is quite correct there in the sense that there is no major rush on either side to move there, because it's just going to be a road to further trouble and further complications, which, frankly speaking, is not something that they would wish for on either side.
Then the process is going on.
So.
Then this is the end of our first part. I am waiting you for the second part. Welcome to the second part of this TV program Western Voice with Olivier Vedrine. I want to start with a very important fact from the EU policy. The EU is recalling now for consultation is ambassador to Russia. Peter, you are fellow in the Atlantic Council, yeah? Then you are at the top level of the international expert. What do you think about this case? Because this is very important. The EU was not very, can I say, like, very shy.
Well, I think this latest step is an indication of how seriously the European Union is taking this attack, and how.
And you are a UK citizen. Then this is your country. Then
yes,
that's why it's important.
Well, I think that it's a very awkward situation for Britain, because now we have Theresa May and the British government appealing to Europe and saying we need to unite to respond to Russian aggression. And of course, there's a lot of people in the EU are saying, well, that's all very well for you now, but you're leaving. You're leaving the EU. You've got your Brexit, you're going to leave. So of course, it's an awkward situation from that point of view. But I think fundamentally we've got, this has been building for a long time. The Russian hybrid war has been building up over a period of the last 4 years. There have been so many incidents accumulating, and this has been perhaps the most shocking from a European perspective within the EU. The idea of a chemical weapons attack in the EU against EU citizens really opens up the gates to a whole new world of security concerns, and there is clearly a political will to send a strong message to Moscow, like this is too far.
Yes,
it's a red line.
You are a UK citizen. What are you waiting for? Which response are you waiting for?
Well, I mean, I can tell you the calls in Britain, the most hawkish calls have been very much to target Russian money. Russian money in London is hugely influential. It is everywhere. It's throughout the investment world. It's throughout the banking sector. It's throughout the real estate. And a knock-on from that. I mean, the Russian money in London is unavoidable. It's one of the key oilers of the entire London system, of the London economy. And there's been a huge amount of calls for the British government to target that, to prevent Russia from bringing its wealth to London and using its wealth to exert its influence. And that's not happened. We've had a diplomatic response. We've not had a hardline financial response.
You're waiting for that?
To be honest, I'm not waiting for it. I wish it would happen, but I don't think it's going to happen. And that is a symbol. That's a signal to Russia that we're not really serious.
Then that's a signal that you are not really, and we are not really serious,
Yes.
because this is Europe, and that's for Putin. That's a signal that he can continue.
Essentially, yes. I'm afraid so. I'm very much afraid that it's a green light saying, "Okay, we don't like it. We will respond." I see it. I see it as expelling diplomats. It's a 20th century response to a 21st century problem. This is a hybrid war. Money's part of the hybrid war.
I think
We need to target that, but we're not doing that because then it would cause too many sacrifices on our side, which people aren't ready to make, unfortunately.
Andrey,
your opinion about that?
Peter gave his analysis as a British citizen. I can give my personal point of view as Ukrainian citizen. And to be honestly, for me, all this case, all this scandal with poisoning of Russian citizen Skripal is just a part of big geopolitical fight between West and Russia. And when I analyze all the situation, I try to analyze, including all kinds of problems which exist now between Russia and West. I mean Ukraine. I mean gas problems, natural gas problems in Europe, and other problems. So for me, this is just a part of an element of this fight, and I think that the situation will deteriorate seriously, because Great Britain and the United States, they are allies, and Russia don't want to normalize relations with West. So we are on the eve of new phase of a new era of geopolitical fight.
Do you think, Peter, that we are on the road of we are in a new Cold War, for sure, but do you think we are on the road of maybe continental war, European continental war? Are you afraid about, because Putin was elected with more than 75% of the voters, 75, yeah, and is very strong. He feel very strong, and the response of UK was not very efficient. Then he will continue. Then where we will go now? Where we will go to which confrontation we will have, in your opinion?
I think, well, one of the areas that I'm looking out for, which I believe will be a signal, will be a major cyber attack on a EU member country, or maybe America, on the infrastructure of a Western country. So something where they take out power grids, or they take out the banking system, or they take out the commercial aspects.
They will continue.
Well, I think, yeah, we won't see a traditional war of tank columns and invasion and occupation forces in the West, but we are very likely to see an escalation in hybrid hostilities and I think the most likely format for that will be cyber attacks
at the end, that can be a conventional war.
Nothing can be ruled out. Nothing can be ruled out, unfortunately, but I think it's highly unlikely that we would see a conventional war involving Russia and the West, given the stakes involved. But that doesn't mean we're going to have a peace or an entente. I think it's much more likely we will see a further escalation in this sort of hybrid hostilities. I see cyber attacks as being one logical area. Information attacks will continue as well. The confrontation will continue.
Andrey, your opinion, the confrontation will continue, as you said?
Undoubtedly, and these possible cyber attacks, they are logical. They could be, maybe they will be, but it's very difficult to predict Russian actions. How Russia is going to act. I mean, it's very difficult. So now, in reality, we have elections. In Russia, I mean the result of elections in Russia, in Germany, and in China. So three leaders, Merkel, Putin, and Xi Jinping, they got and they stabilized their power, their political system. So we have to understand this situation, and we have to understand that the situation in China and Russia will not change in the proximate years. So we have to analyze the future geopolitical features, the future geopolitical map, including and understanding such reality.
Maybe the consequences of the Putin policy to the West will be to unify Europe, include Britain after the Brexit, because we have to be unified if we want to face a person like Putin. You know?
Well, this was one of the comments that was quite widespread in Britain after the attack in Salisbury, that if we wanted to strike back, we should cancel Brexit. Yeah. Because this would be very unpopular with Russia. Okay, yeah, I don't know how you know.
That can be a consequence.
Nothing can be ruled out in terms of Brexit as well, and yeah. But I think in general terms, we are talking about a broad unification of the West in response to the threat they face.
Include USA also.
Including the USA, and even Britain outside of the EU, you know, UK, US, EU, this is going to be a fairly united front against Russian aggression.
I am sure that would be a
for
consequence.
the medium term, and this is actually, we've seen this. I mean, we hear a lot in the media about fractures within the EU. The Greeks, the Hungarians, perhaps, you know, these different, the Italians to some extent, you know, countries that are breaking ranks and saying, let's not attack Russia, or let's take Russia out of this statement, or let's look to weaken sanctions. And those issues are highlighted. What we don't hear much about is the fact that sanctions have been in place now for 4 years, and they've remained in place. And every time they come up and they get automatically rolled over. And so we hear a lot of rhetoric, but actually the facts on the ground show that Europe is extremely united and surprisingly so. So this is already a result.
And I think that's the consequences of the Putin hybrid war against the West.
Absolutely.
Then a few words about the nomination of John Bolton, like national security advisor of Trump. What is your opinion, Peter, and after Andrey?
Well, one of the takes on this I saw, I mean, McMaster was seen as a very a specialist in Russian hybrid war. He literally wrote the book on Russian hybrid warfare. So to see him leave after such a relatively short time is disappointing from a Ukrainian point of view. I would have liked to have seen him remain in that position. Bolton is seen as quite a slightly less stable character, let's say. His track record on the Iraq War, as you mentioned earlier, is cause for concern. There's a lot of people concerned now about his presence in the White House now could cause a much more aggressive foreign policy, a much more to release. You know, people like McMaster were seen as restraining influences on President Trump. With someone like Bolton there, some people say, well, Trump's actually now the adult in the room. He's the mature figure. These guys are far less under control, so to speak. So the concern now would be that foreign policy-wise, we'll see a much more assertive America, maybe not in a good way.
Few words, because this is the conclusion. Please, Andrey.
I will say some words concerning Bolton. I think that Bolton will strengthen the current administration by Donald Trump, and he's a strong anti-Russian person. For example, 4 years ago, Bolton urged United States government to give Ukraine arms, modern weapon, and maybe to help Ukraine become a member of NATO. It was his interview 4 years ago. But now he's an incumbent. I mean, he's in charge. Many United States, many diplomats from the United States, they changed their views when they became officials. So I don't know what will be now, but I think that Bolton will strengthen and will support Ukraine and will strengthen American Ukrainian Union ally against possible Russian aggression.
Thank you, Andrey. Thank you, Peter. This is the end of this issue of Western Voice with Olivier Vedrine. Goodbye, do побачення, and remember, never give up.